Okay, so today we're going to talk about color theory and color systems and a lot of things relating to color. This by no means, like a lot of the lectures that I give over the course of the semester, is not something that really can be compressed into one lecture. I'll give you the highlights. This will be the highlight reel of color. But the truth is that you could take a class on color theory and that's all you talked about for the entire semester. So some of the points that I'll make today might be slightly exaggerated, but I'm trying to get the idea across that color is important and what color you choose is important and why you choose the color is important. So we're going to talk through that. We'll talk about color systems, etc. At the end, I'll show a bunch of examples of Charlie Harper work, student work, so that you can get inspired for your assignment 104. So I want you to kind of get started doing that. Actually, on the assignment today, or excuse me, on the exercise 116, I'm asking you to look for a sample Charlie Harper image that you're going to base your work on. So you'll post that sample kind of as a precursor so that you can get started. Furthermore, the swatches that we're going to work with today will not take you all day by any means, but the idea here is that you'll get time in class to work on your assignment 104, so you won't have to do it all outside of class as homework. So it's a good thing, and it will benefit you in the long run anyway. So let's start talking about colors. Some of this is going back to when you were in kindergarten and you were first playing with finger paints and that sort of thing. And we have to kind of get through the basics. Probably this is all familiar to you anyway, but why not? We'll go through it. So on the color wheel, we have a primary color, which would be our traditional red right here, right? Our blue and our yellow. Okay? If we had those as paints and we mixed them together, if we mixed two primaries, for example, if we mixed the yellow and the red as the primary, we'd get the secondary of orange, right? Do you guys remember this? Way back in grade school, right? Mixing the paints. Makes sense. Okay? Tertiary are the combination of a secondary and a primary, so we get a third color. Okay? And obviously, the more we mix, the more we can break it down as we go from there. But primaries, red, yellow, and blue, and then we mix those to make the secondaries. We mix a secondary and a primary to get a tertiary color. Okay? Complementary colors are colors that are opposite of each other on the color wheel. Okay, so the opposite of, say, orange would be blue, right? The opposite of purple would be yellow, right? Those are complementary colors. They go nicely together, which is the idea behind them. Okay? Analogous colors, on the other hand, are colors that are similar to each other, and they're generally next to each other on the color wheel. Okay, so if we look at this sample here, we've got the oranges, the yellows kind of all in one. They're very similar to one another. It means that one color doesn't really stand out against another. So the complementary colors are contrasts, right? One color stands out against another. The analogous colors are very similar in spectrum, and they can be an advantage or a disadvantage depending on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to highlight something or not? Okay? So they match each other well. They go well together. Okay? In terms of color systems, we highlighted this a little bit earlier in the semester, but there are two primary color systems. There's a red, green, blue system, an RGB system, and there's a CMYK system. And I'm going to talk about what each of them are in just a second. We'll start with the red, green, blue. And the fundamental difference here is it has to do whether or not you can touch the color. Okay? And that sounds a little weird on the surface. Okay? But in an RGB system, you actually cannot touch the color. Okay? It has to do with light. So anybody ever been to the Exploratorium in San Francisco before? Yeah, a few of you? Okay, it's a really cool place, right? You could be a kid. It's fun, right? They had an exhibit, and I don't know whether they still have it there, where they had a red light, a green light, and a blue light shining together on a wall. Okay? And as you walked in front of the wall and cast a shadow, because the lights were in separate locations, your shadow would be different colors. Okay? And this has to do with the additive quality of light. So if we take a red light, a green light, and a blue light, and we shine them all together at a wall, the overall effect would be that it's white, because the three colors mix together to form white. Okay? If we took away the blue and we shine just red and green together, where those two colors overlap, we'd get yellow. Okay? And why is this relevant to you? Everything that we interact with that's electronic, every screen, iPad, TV, computer screen, etc., is made up this way. Okay? Tiny little dots of red, green, and blue, and the combination of those dots makes all of these colors for us. Okay? So again, it has to do with light. It's not something that you can physically touch. Okay? CMYK, on the other hand, right, is the opposite. It has to do with paints or things that you can touch and put your fingers on. Okay? Which actually means it has to do with absorbing light rather than emitting light. Okay? So in the case of CMYK, which is the most common color scheme that we'll talk about certainly in this class, it has to do with the inks that are used or the toners that are used in the printing process. Okay? And we typically use 4 colors: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, which is called key. That's why it's CMYK for key. Okay? And so we use black by itself because the combination of cyan, magenta, and yellow really doesn't yield black. It yields kind of a dark gray. So we can't get a true vibrant black. So we add black to get that nice vibrant color. Okay? But it's through the combination of these inks that are printed on the page that we get other colors. So you combine cyan and magenta and you get blue. Okay? The way this really works is you combine those pigments together, and what they do is they absorb every light in the spectrum as it hits the paper except for blue, and blue gets reflected back to us. Okay? So it has to do with absorption of light rather than transmission of light. Okay? Those are technical details, but it's important to understand why CMYK is important and why RGB is important. So when we open an Illustrator file or we open an InDesign file and it asks you your ultimate intention of what are you going to do with this piece of work, if it's web-based or screen-based, you would be working in an RGB color space. If it was print-based, something you're going to print out, you'd want to be working in a CMYK color space. Okay? Technically speaking, you can convert between the two, and our computers are really good at doing that for us. But if we were being really accurate, we wanted to make sure that our printed page worked out to match our monitor and all the rest of it. We'd want to make sure that 1, our monitors are calibrated correctly, which they never are, and 2, we'd want to make sure that we were using color profiles for the printers and the ink and what specific type of ink was being used so we can compensate for and see exactly what we're going to get. For our purposes here, it's a trial and error. Anybody tried to print something and it looks completely different on screen than it does on the printer, right? That's a fundamental problem here because we don't have calibrated monitors and we don't have color profiles for the printers, we don't have consistent ink for the printer, etc. You get the idea. If you were using a professional print shop, they would have that for you and it would make more sense. I've actually requested for a long time that we have monitor calibration equipment and here so that we could do that as part of today's lecture, but anyway, we don't get to do it. Such is life. Color theory is fundamentally the meaning behind colors and why you would choose a specific color over another color. Why is one more important or less important than another color? Okay? The idea here is that you want to be deliberate when you choose what color. Okay? Why are you choosing to wear the color you want? Right? All of us like certain colors. We tend to wear certain colors. I mean, architects are the notorious example, right? And I'm falling into suit right here, right? We wear black. We always wear black. You come into your review for 220 or 221, half the architects, more than half the architects that wander into the room will be wearing black. Okay? We do it. It's kind of a power trip thing. Somehow it makes us feel more confident, and so we all wear black. It becomes a trend, and we just do it. Right? But when you wake up in the morning, you decide what color you're going to wear based on your mood or whatever. The point is that color makes a difference. Okay? So we want to be deliberate when choosing our colors for our projects. Okay? Color theory at its core is about developing aesthetically pleasing color relationships. So we're going to talk about the emotion behind colors to start. There are generally specific color groups that are associated with specific emotions. This is not a big scientific breakthrough, right? You're probably already aware of these sorts of things, but it doesn't hurt to talk about them, okay? We have warm colors, we have cool colors, and we have neutral colors. The warm colors are the reds, the yellows, the oranges, okay? They're generally warm. They evoke fire. You know, think fire, the things that are warm, right? Your heater, whatever, they're always red, okay? Orange. No surprise that those are the warm colors. Okay? They often have feelings associated with happiness or joy or something like that, which is useful. Okay? In 2009, for example, there was a bunch of struggling websites out there. You guys remember that kind of housing crash? Everything was not doing so hot in the economy, right? A bunch of websites said, let's put some yellow in there, make people feel a little bit better, right? It's subtle differences, and I'm going to show you some examples down the road of how this happens, okay? It's things that you don't notice, but subconsciously, they're trying to help you feel like it's okay to spend money, okay? Cool colors, on the other hand, right, are cold, winter, cold morning, those kinds of things, but they're also generally used for professional, established, stable kinds of companies, okay? So blue wouldn't be a surprise on, say, Dell's website, right? Stable company, been around for a long time, right? So you see that kind of occurring, okay? The neutral colors, the grays, the blacks, the browns, the whites, are not trying to push you in either direction, though we could get into a finer debate over there are warm grays and there are cold grays, and which one do you pick, right? It's like when you choose to paint your house. You know gray is the in color right now. If you're going to paint your interior walls, you're going to paint them gray, right? And you have to choose what gray. And you walk into Home Depot or whatever to look at the paint selection, and there's like 500 grays. And you're like, I don't know, right? But part of this is deciding, you know, we're in the gray range and we're nitpicking here, but do you want it to be a little bit warmer? Does it have those orange and yellow tones in it? Or is it a little colder? Does it have the blue tones in it? And you have to decide what's right for your particular house. Red. Okay, let's get into the specific colors. Okay? Red is very symbolic of fire or power. Right? No surprise. Anger, those kinds of things. It's associated with passion or importance. Right? It's a great tool, especially in an architectural presentation, to highlight something specific. Right? It draws your attention. It's a very captivating color. It generally stimulates energy and excitement. The negative connotations, rage, right? Emergency. There's a reason we tend to paint our fire trucks red. Right? You know that there's a great story about the fire trucks in Berkeley. Okay? So Berkeley, you're aware that UC Berkeley's primary rival in sports is Stanford. Maybe. Okay? Stanford's color is red. Berkeley's color is blue and gold. Okay? So the Berkeley fire trucks were painted red for a long time. Okay? Makes sense. Emergency, right? Problem was the students got a little rowdy, and the fire trucks were red, and they might have been a little intoxicated, and they started trying to damage the fire trucks, like to push them over and that sort of thing. Not a good thing. Okay? So there was a while where the city of Berkeley said, "I'll forget it," and they repainted all their fire trucks blue. And everybody was happy. Okay? Then, you know, things changed and whatever, and they bought new engines, and they're red again. But whatever. So be it. It's a fun story. Okay? So it's something to be aware of, but generally emergency, fire trucks, ambulances, those kinds of things are going to be painted red. We associate that. So it's important to understand that that's part of what red represents as a color. Okay? Orange is not as strong as red. It's generally a little bit more happy in color because it's a blend between the red, the passion, right, and the yellow of the happy. Joy, sunshine, negative connotations. It's still a little bit aggressive, but it's not quite as associated with aggression as, say, red would be, right? Sometimes it can be a little bit about ignorance. Okay? Yellow is the happy, positive color. Like I said, websites shifted to yellow in 2009. Life is happy. Buy some more stuff, right? But it's subtle, but it's there, okay? Negative, there's a reason that we use caution tape as yellow, right? We have all these things in the back of our mind. So there's a little bit of caution mixed in with the whole idea of yellow as well. So it's important to be aware of that, okay? So we went through the warm colors. We're shifting more into the cool colors. Green is kind of neutral, right? It's right in between, okay? It's generally symbolic of nature and has a healing quality, right? Growth, harmony, those kinds of things. It's also symbolic of money, which could be a negative thing, right? Greed, jealousy, symbolic of money, right? The reason that green is symbolic of money is simply because our money in the United States is green, as ridiculous as that is, right? You go anywhere else in the world and their money isn't green, but somehow we've associated green with money. So life is the way it is. Okay? The other thing that I think is very interesting when we talk about green is moved beyond a color in our world, right? Which is kind of interesting. We talk about going green or being green or whatever. It has nothing to do with the color anymore, even though it's the name of the color, right? And it has to do with the sustainability aspects. I drive a Prius, therefore I'm green, whatever it is, okay? Maybe I should say I drive a Tesla, therefore I'm green. I don't know. I don't drive either one, but I'd like to. Anyway, well, maybe not a Prius, but a Tesla would be fun. Anyway, so green has this other quality to it. And so if you choose to use green, you have to understand that it has these connotations related to it. And is that appropriate or not? Blue is generally the peaceful, calming, stable color. Okay? It's a strong color, stability, expertise, right? There's a reason the White House website uses blue as its color. Okay? We all recognize that there are primary colors for the United States of America, right? Red, white, and blue. Celebrate 4th of July, etc. Okay? We could, hold on a second, we could, for example, have the White House website be red. Okay? Doesn't quite feel right. Okay? And I'm going to show you an example in just a second. Yeah.
Is that why police uniforms are blue?
Yeah, generally. Yeah. Yep, generally. Okay? So symbolic of trust and dependability, right? Could be rather cold, maybe passive, etc. Okay, so let's look. Here's the actual White House website. Okay, seems pretty stable, right? Nice, grounded, makes sense. Okay, what if we took this same website and we changed it and made it red? Doesn't quite feel right, right? Doesn't feel as stable anymore. It's the exact same website, same pictures, everything's the same. Right? I just went in and I changed the color scheme. Kind of interesting. Right? So these two are a perfect example of why color matters and why you have to be deliberate about what you're trying to do when it comes to color. Okay? Purple is generally the color of royalty, maybe religion, sophistication. Okay? It goes back to the world of dye. When purple dye was a really big deal, it was very expensive. So people that were royal wanted to show off their wealth. They could buy the purple dye to be able to have the purple clothes. Get the idea. Okay? Spirituality, creativity, right? It's also associated with healing and feminine qualities, right? So be aware of that. Can exude a little bit of gloominess or maybe sadness. Okay? Black is generally correlated with power or sophistication, depth. Okay? Like I said, there's a reason architects love to wear black. Right? It's a power thing. Okay? But it is actually really funny. Anytime you're interacting with architects, it's either black, gray, or somebody is out there dressed in some wild color for the fun of it, and they're doing that on purpose. Okay? So anyway, when I was doing my master's at Berkeley and we had final review, right? Which is, that's like the culmination of your thesis. It's the big deal, right? And they fly in these visiting reviewers, et cetera, and they all walk in and they all wear black. Right? It's just the way of the times. Anyway, it can be associated with death or the mystery, the unknown, those kinds of things. That might be on the negative side, right? It is also the color of grief or sorrow, right? You wear black at a funeral. Right? It'd be a little weird if everybody showed up at a funeral wearing yellow, joy and happiness. It wouldn't quite be right. Okay? White, right? Purity, innocence. There's a reason that a woman wears white on her wedding day, right? It's pure, etc. So white is the lack of color, right? Can also be cold or distant, winters, snow, that sort of thing as well. Okay? Okay, so how about this? Research reveals that all human beings make an unconscious judgment about a person, environment, or item within 90 seconds of the initial viewing of it, right? And between 62 and 90% of that assessment is based on color alone. Do you think color is important? Yeah, it is, right? So statistically, it's really, really important. This comes from the Institute of Color Research. Okay, so let's look at common brands. We just did a bunch of stuff relating to logos last class, right? So we see all kinds of logos, and it's kind of interesting to see where various companies place themselves on this spectrum, okay? We've got the outliers, right, way out here that use all the colors, right? Notice Microsoft is right there, okay, using all the colors. right? The opposite, there's Apple using none of the colors. Kind of interesting, right? Why did they choose one versus the other? Okay, and so we can pick out a few key brands as part of it. If we look at the green, a lot of those have to do with green stuff, right? John Deere tractors, farming, green. I mean, they all kind of make sense, right? Animal Planet, Whole Foods is green. Starbucks maybe doesn't really make too much sense, but it is what it is. Yeah.
Monster also doesn't make any sense.
Right. Monster doesn't really make sense either. You know. So you got some. It's a little weird. Okay. I think one of the ones that's really interesting is BP, right? Big energy consumption company, yet they're choosing to make their logo green. Kind of interesting. You know. Yeah.
Wasn't Starbucks' old logo brown? More brown though?
You know, I'd have to look at it. I don't know. I don't know Starbucks. I don't know the history of Starbucks that well.
Yeah, because I went
So-
to the original Starbucks at Seattle
Mhm.
one time, and even their logo is still the same thing from the original one.
Oh, really? It's a little bit more brown. Interesting. So they made the conscious choice, right? So if we move up, you know, we look at the blues. There's a lot of pretty stable brands. You know, Chase Bank. You know, those kinds of things are going to be in the blues, right? Purples. Nothing. You know, I think it's more the attempt of companies to make themselves appear more sophisticated than they are, i.e., Yahoo. That are, you know, Taco Bell. I don't know. Okay. The Sci-Fi Channel. Go figure.
It fits with the creative.
Yeah, it definitely fits with the creative. So, you know, it's kind of interesting. Okay. We look at the reds, right? The reds are generally, you know, they're considered the excitement, but they're also the flashier companies. They're the ones trying to get your attention. Okay. So no surprise there. The oranges is a kind of a mixed bag of who picks the oranges, right? So the yellows also, you know, there's a fair number of yellows out there. That's about trying to get you to buy stuff, right? So there's no surprise that a lot of the brands in there are trying to get you to buy stuff. Okay, so let's look at some case studies for fun. Okay, Yahoo circa 1996. Okay, the scary thing is this doesn't seem that long ago to me. And some of you are like, yeah, and I wasn't born.
I was a year
So
old.
yeah. So some of you were a year old, and yeah, I remember this website. Anyway, so this was the very early days of Yahoo. Okay, and so we look at this, and there's not a whole lot to talk about here. Okay, this is the early days of the web. Mostly stuff was links. Links by default were blue. That wasn't a big color choice. It was just the way it was. Okay, the logo, however, was red. Excitement. Go to Yahoo. Right? We add the exclamation at the end too. That's important. Okay. So okay, 1996. Can't talk too much. Okay. Let's move to 2000. Right? You're now 4. God, I'm old. Notice and see some of this. You know, it's so different. You know, you guys don't remember when you like buying stuff online was like a big deal. It's like, oh my God, you're going to buy something online, really? Okay. Well, 2000, you could buy something online. Big deal, right? Notice the subtle shift to green and money and shopping. Notice the emphasis of the green box in the middle, Yahoo Shopping, right? Kind of interesting to see how that plays in. Okay, still predominantly, we're only in the year 2000, still a lot of links, right? Those are by default blue, but there's a little bit there.
Slight question. Where did you find screen caps of the original Yahoo websites?
There is actually a, if you do a Google search for the, what is it, the Internet Archive or something like that, you can go back and see snapshots of certain web pages back in time. It's very, very cool. So, and I forget what it is. You can Google it. I think it's the Internet Archive. Okay, so let's move forward to 2003. Okay, logo's still red, still exciting. Okay, but we're seeing the first introduction of purple. Okay, Yahoo's trying to brand itself a little bit more sophisticated. We're going to throw a little bit of purple in there, mostly blue, right? I'm stable, I'm a little fancy, little mostly blue, little bit of purple. Okay, jump forward to 2005. Okay, this happens to be around Valentine's Day. We're getting the Yahoo Shopping being kind of a reddish pink. Draw your attention to that area. Excitement, right? Buy some more stuff. You see how much stuff is related to buying online? It's kind of interesting, right? Purple is still there. Yahoo in 2007 said, I want to be like Google. And they simplified their homepage, right? This lasted for like 6 months, and then they went back to the old one, okay? So we simplify it down, right? We have the red Yahoo logo. We have just a few things, right? The yellow bar, right, for the web search, kind of interesting, right? Shows there briefly. That didn't last very long. 2009, okay, major rebrand for Yahoo. No more red. No more excitement relating to the name. We are the stable, sophisticated brand now. We're the brand of royalty, right? We're going to use purple, right? Kind of interesting. So a lot more purple on the screen. Okay, we move forward into 2013. A little bit darker shade of purple, but a lot more dominant in purple. Okay, so we're really seeing this shift. They've moved in this direction, right? 2016, even more purple. Right? And kind of a simplification. So it's kind of interesting to see how this evolves over time. Okay? You ready for another example? Why not? You guys all want to go to sleep. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I find it funny that Yahoo is like purple, like very trying to be like very sophisticated, and then there's like presidential debate, and then the next news article is like how celebrities spent their Easter weekend.
Right. Yep. Yep. Tells you a little bit about it. Okay. So let's look at Apple. I couldn't resist. Sorry. Okay. I obviously I like Apple devices. I like what Steve Jobs did. So I had to show Apple. Okay. Apple 1997, before Steve Jobs came into play. Okay. This is what the web used to look like. Pretty ugly, right? We've made some progress in almost 20 years. Let's hope so. Okay. All right, so here we go. Steve Jobs comes back, rebrand the website, obviously better. Okay, not quite solved in what color we're going to use. I don't really know. Okay, kind of in the blacks and the beiges. Okay, so major revamp for Apple right here, 2000. Steve Jobs says we're going to change the whole product line. We're going to change the company. We're going to take them from being out of business to being a really big powerhouse in the world of technology. Okay, so do anybody remember these iMacs? Right, a few of you might remember them. Okay, they came in a variety of colors, and I forget the exact names. Purple was one, but they made like a cyan-y blue color. They made a tangerine orange color, whatever. Okay, but when they chose to put the one on the home page, they chose to put the purple one. Okay? And I promise you, Steve Jobs was not out to lunch when it came to which one went on there. Right? This was not just some random one. I'll just take one of the images and put them up there. No. This had to do very specifically purple because they were trying to rebrand themselves, and they were trying to show that our computers are different than everybody else's. Ours are better. Ours look better. Ours are the higher end. Right? And they did a very successful job of putting themselves in that place. Okay? So they chose deliberately the purple. Notice the Apple logo is red, right? Kind of interesting. Company starting out, I know Apple had been around for a long time, but this is their rebranding start. Just like Yahoo, make the logo red. Kind of interesting, right? Excitement, build excitement around the brand. Okay? 2001, now we don't need the red Apple anymore. We're going to go to the blue Apple. We're now a stable company. We're no longer about to go bankrupt. We're back. Okay? So we switched to blue. And we have a predominant blue scheme across the whole website. I love that this has Adobe Illustrator 10. I think we're on Adobe Illustrator like 17 or 18 or something now. Right? So we've made some progress there too. Okay, 2002. Notice holiday gift guide is in green. Again, money, shopping. We see that again. A lot of blue on the screen, stripping out color. No more colored Apple logo. We're in the grays. Right? This is the direction Apple goes from here forward. Look at how thick that computer is. Anybody remember these ads? Right? So the iPod comes out. The iPod is a luxury item. It's a luxury technology item. I remember when one of my friends in college got his first iPod. It was the first one I'd ever seen. It was like, oh, whoa, that is so neat, Anyway. So they branded it on these purple backdrops. Luxury item, right? Conscious decision about color choice, right? They also did some on orange for the excitement of that, but the purple was the predominant one that was showed. 2006, no color at all. All blacks, whites, and grays. Kind of interesting, the shift. Okay? 2007, we make a little bit of shine to the top bar, clean it up a little bit. Okay? We have the first stainless IMAX. 2010, right? I'm starting to get into the realm where you guys might remember. Okay? 2010, anybody remember this phone? This was probably like the 3G or the 3GS, right? This was a really cool phone, right? You look at it now and it's like, whoa, really? Right? Remember I was talking about the shininess, right, of the iOS? This was what it looked like in the beginning. Okay? 2011, right? The shine. The shine is definitely there. We got the shadow across the top, but again, it's gray, right, and a little bit of color. iPhone 5 coming out, 2013. Okay? A little bit darker gray, but not too much color other than the images themselves. Okay, so this is a big date. September 18th, 2013. This is when iOS 7 came out. This is when Johnny Ives and the development team at Apple said, no more shadows, no more shine. We're going with flat objects. And it really changed the trend in design and user experience. So I like to point that out as an important day. So then we move forward into 2014. Still have the gray bar, much bigger color photographs, etc. So they're changing a little bit. It's not product focused, it's experience focused. Right? And so 2015, they're trying to showcase all of their variety of devices. Again, we've got no shine. We've gone to complete flat across the top. And here we are in 2016, black bar. Okay, so we've evolved. We've gotten darker over time. So let's go into some further analysis. So once again, remember, our impression is made, right, within 90 seconds, and 62 to 90% is based on color. Okay? So I know that this is not a political class, so I will make absolutely no comments about why or how you should vote in any of the upcoming election issues. But I think it is a perfect opportunity to talk about color choice. Right? So again, this is a conscious decision. And so I know Bernie's out. Okay? I get this. I showed these in the spring because everybody was still in and we could analyze them against each other. But you guys can still, it's still current enough to where we can show the images. Okay? So I ran this through an image analysis, okay, that talks about the primary colors that are used. Okay, so black and brown at 25 and 23%. Okay, no surprise. A lot of websites are going to have that kind of content. Okay, then we move down into the next highest color at 12.74% is blue. Kind of interesting, right? The stability of it. Interesting, right? We move down a little bit further. We have some red, kind of a light salmon. We move into gray, and finally we have a tiny little bit of green. Okay? And I think some of those colors are, in this particular case, are just because of all the people's pictures in the background. Right? So I don't know how conscious that was. If we stripped out the people's pictures, we're mostly blue. Okay? So let's look at Hillary's. Okay? So in this context, she was very much about trying to get the young people on her side. Remember, back in the spring, Bernie was dominating the younger demographic. Hillary wanted that demographic at that point because they were in competition. So she's choosing this lighter blue color as her primary color. It's very tech-savvy color, right? Twitter uses it. It's kind of a Facebook color, right? We're pushing this lighter color to try to attract that audience, okay? Notice the cell phone, like, it's all kind of there as part of this scheme, okay? So let's look at it. Very, very high percentage of that light blue color at almost 40%, okay? Not much red at all, okay, at 1.12%, okay? So let's go forward to today. Okay? Remember I said she was coveting those younger voters and trying to go after them with that particular color? Okay? Is that color there anymore? Nope. all gone, right? Gone completely. We adopt the Bernie color. We go back to Bernie. There's that color, right? We're just going to assimilate those people and put the color in. Just interesting to see how this stuff plays out. Okay? If we do the color analysis here, right? Much lower content of the blues. They're much further down in the spectrum of how much she's using them. Okay? So let's look on the Republican side, right? Kasich was the very stable candidate. No surprise we're using a dark blue, etc. So we look, we've got kind of our traditional color spectrum, the 5.97% red. Okay? Cruz, similar, lots and lots of black. Aha, right? Look at how much red is part of this, right? And if you followed the race at all, you notice that one of the premises of this particular candidate has a lot to do with anger at the establishment. So there's no surprise that there's a very high content of red, right? We look up here at that 8.65% red, followed by a lighter red at 6.91%. Very high red content. Yeah?
They did that with the U.S. newspaper. They had Trump and it was all red.
Right, so it's interesting. Right now, obviously, there's connotations with who are the Democrats and who are the Republicans, and what color the various states are and whatever. Okay, but still, it's interesting to see how some graphic designer is trying to interpret a particular candidate, and therefore that reflects that particular candidate. So let's jump forward to today and update. Right, the red's not quite as deep; it's toned down a little bit. I think somebody in the campaign is trying to make him more attractive, maybe. Okay. So it's kind of interesting. Notice that there's a lot more blue than there was before. Okay? Stable. Well, at least they're trying. Stable candidate. So you guys see how this stuff is playing in to what the people are trying to project about a particular candidate. Okay? So was there somebody behind there analyzing, right, here's the color analysis. Did we use the right percentage of blue in Trump's website? Probably not. Okay? Is this a bit of an exaggeration on my part? Yeah. Okay? But at the same time, I hope that by me exaggerating this and making these points and bringing it up, it will make you think about why color choice is important. Okay? Did I get through to you today? Did I make you think about it a little bit? Okay? That's the idea. Okay? So just take it with a grain of salt. Was I a little bit more extreme about it? Yeah. Okay? But I want you to understand and I want you to think about why you're choosing a particular color. And that's really the critical thing about it. So there are some more websites for information. We're going to go to Paladin today. Colored is another one. Color Lovers. All have to do with color schemes. And we will talk through a variety of those. So let's shift gears completely. And let's talk about some examples of Charlie Harper work. No political connotations at all in this, I promise. Okay? I think I did a pretty good job of staying neutral, though, wouldn't you say? I didn't make any comments, right? This is not a poli-sci class. I didn't influence you in any way. I'm just trying to be clear.
A little twist, yeah.
Charlie Harper. Okay, Charlie Harper was an artist in the 50s, very well respected. Part of the reason that I like Charlie Harper as an emulation for your assignment, and one of the reasons that I've given this particular assignment since 2007, right, is that I think it's a very good adaptation of basic shapes and basic geometry, color theory, and how they all come together in the world of Illustrator. So obviously, Charlie Harper in the 50s did not have Adobe Illustrator to do his drawings. No surprise. Right? So he did all of this by hand, painting, etc. You guys have the benefit of Illustrator. That means you can copy and reflect and mirror and do all of the things that he couldn't do. But at the same time, you can work through, right, basic Charlie Harper shapes. Okay? So what Charlie Harper is very, very good at is establishing a repeating pattern. So we see here we have a repeating pattern of these circles, some of which are leaves. But notice that two of these, right there and right there, have become the birds. Okay? So he's worked very hard to make sure that they fit within the context of the pattern. All of the shapes are flat, no shadows, no three-dimensionality, okay? And they're all very distinct shapes. So it's not an oblong, oval, it's a circle, right? The wings are just larger circles. Very, very abstract. Notice also, however, there is an extremely strong diagonal composition here, right? Also, this bird is nicely on the third line, right? So all of the techniques that we talked about in the photography section of this class still apply to the stuff you're doing here. So don't forget about composition. Don't just plop your bird right in the center. That's not what we want. Okay? So again, repetition. Okay, we do the repetition. The thing that's different is the snake at the bottom being eaten, and one of the turkey vultures is mirrored, right? Which again, compositionally, creates a strong line here as part of the composition. No surprise that the head of the snake is right there as well. Okay? Less compositionally exciting to me, but I like this image because it shows how he does wings or things that move. So he shows a repetition of the same shape. So in this case, the hummingbird wings overlap. They're not filled in with any color, but those overlapping shows the beating of the wings. Okay? Another example here, again, the circles are consistent in a pattern behind. The bird breaks the circle pattern and causes you to have attention. Strong diagonal composition here as well. Okay? The heart with the two ladybugs. The ladybugs are mirrors of each other. Notice that the ladybugs are slightly off-center from the heart. There's a reason that they're set up that way. Okay? He did a lot of nature. You're getting the idea that this is very nature-oriented. Even this, which is a squirrel, it's not broken down into just a single circle or a rectangle or something, right? But it still has very strong graphic shapes, right? We have the leg that's represented by this shape. Right? We have this leg that's represented by this shape. Okay? This shape here represents the color on the back. So you see that it's still very shape-oriented. Right? They didn't just take a squirrel and try to trace the tail like that. Right? That's not Charlie Harper. Right? The tail's abstract. It's one clean half circle. Okay? The reason I'm emphasizing this is I've seen so many people who try to take an image and then just trace it. It doesn't work, right? You have to abstract it into shapes. 1954 gives you a sense of timing. Okay, other examples here. Right, and I'm going to start to go through them a little bit faster, but you see this similarity. And as part of your exercise 116 today, I'm going to have you pick out an example Charlie Harper that you're going to base your work on. I don't want you to copy it exactly. I want you to use it as a starting point. Okay? So you make it your own, but you kind of adapt it based on his work. Okay? Yeah, I don't really like that one. I should skip that one. This one I think is fantastic because of the layering that's involved. Okay? So we have a water, a pool that we're looking down into. Right? The leaf is floating on top of the water. We see the rings from where the leaf is sitting on the water. Right? Those represent the waves that are caused by the falling leaf. We have the little bug that's sitting on the water, and we see the circles around each of his legs. Okay? Then we have the lily pads. Then below that we have the fish. Below that we have the crawdad on the bottom. So there's this great layering effect, even though there's no actual perspective to it. It's still very much flat. It just has to do with what is on top of what. The dog and the cat, right? The cat on the branch, the raccoons, right? The woodpecker and the stripes. So let's look at some student work. So these are adaptations of Charlie Harper's work that have been shown before. Okay? I think this one's very Charlie Harper-esque, very shape-oriented. This one would be a lot better if the fish was an actual shape rather than so free form. Right? This one is very, very similar to a Charlie Harper, but the extra little knife in the back and stuff is kind of creatively done. Okay? So again, subtlety is important relating to this. You guys saw the raccoons before. We see the adaptation of the raccoons. So you see how that kind of works together. Okay? Right? Very geometric in its shape. Okay? I have to show this one just because I like it. It's a little bit of a sidebar from Charlie Harper, but the patterning is really nice, the repetition is really nice, and the way that she breaks the frame. This is from like 2008 or whatever, but it's still consistently one of my favorites. The elephant that comes up across the two frames. I don't know, I really like it. Compositionally, it's well done. So I have to show it. Okay? So there are a variety of other examples that are available online under the student work section that you're more than welcome to look at. What I want you to do for part 1 is I want you to Google and find a Charlie Harper image that will work as an example for you, and you're going to post it so that you have a concrete example for what you're going to work on. I'm going to switch over, and then we're going to talk through swatches in just a second. Okay, I apologize for that delay. For whatever reason, my computer is having trouble connecting to the network. So we're going to work through some examples. I'll let you pick your own Charlie Harper. I think you can post that, and I don't have to walk you through that part. But I do want to talk about swatches. And what swatches are, and again, like I said, you're going to have lots of time to work on your Charlie Harper today, more important than working on the swatches. But what swatches do is it allows you to save specific colors to reuse over and over again. So once you have a color that you like or a color palette that you like, you can just load in the swatch and then always choose from that same set of colors rather than having to write it down and remember, etc. So we're going to use a website called Paladin today. And Paladin helps us pick and establish a color scheme for a particular website or design, etc. And I think it's a pretty good place to start. There are a few other websites that I'll talk briefly about, but the Paladin seems to be a pretty good basic place to start. We have here our first example, which is monochromatic, which gives us a color, a primary color, and we can swing around the color wheel to whatever color we want, and then we get a variety of colors related to that one color. So our primary color here is this medium purple. We've got a very dark, a darker, a lighter, and a light purple that are all kind of analogous colors to the first purple that we're picking. If we move to the next set, which they call adjacent colors, which I would argue are more analogous colors, as we swing around the color wheel, you can see that not only are we getting colors that kind of go next to each other, but we're getting varieties of color that go next to each other as well. So it's trying to give a pretty comprehensive palette of those analogous colors. Okay? As we move over, we get to our triad colors. And this, to me, is where we're really starting to get a good set of complementary colors. I would call this a split complementary. So if, for example, we're picking red as our primary, instead of getting our true complementary color, which would be green, we're getting a split complementary where we're slightly to either side, and that gives us a kind of a yellowish green and a teal blue that goes against our red. If we swing this around, say to blue, for example, we'll get a yellowy gold and a greenish yellow color instead of just yellow. So you can move your way around. You can also adjust how dark and how light the colors that it selects next to your colors are, right, which can help you. We could move over here. This is our tetrad where we end up with 4 colors. To me, this is less successful. And the last option is a freestyle pick for 4 different colors that you can work through. I'm going to stick with the triad or the 3 colors. And I'll pick my primary color. Let's pick that one, this kind of orangey color as my primary color. Once I have my color scheme here, I'm going to go up to, and they move this stuff around a lot, down here, tables and export. This gives me my colors. Okay, and so with these values, here RGB values, for example, at 170, 121, and 57, in Illustrator, I could create this color. And so let me go ahead and open up Illustrator for a second. Just so that you can see this process. And let me create a new document here. square. And if I wanted to fill that square with this color that's listed here, this 170, 121, 57, I could double click my color, and here under R, what was it? 170, 121, and 57. So 170, 121, and 57, and that would then create that color. Okay? It's a little bit annoying to have to write down those numbers or to type them in. Okay? So the goal here is that instead of doing that, we're going to create a swatch that would represent that color for us. Okay? So I'm going to go back to the Paladin website here, and on the right side, instead of color list, I'm going to go to color swatches. Okay? And you see that one of the options is an ACO Photoshop color swatch file. So that's the one I want. I'm going to click on it, and it's going to download something called mypalette.aco. Okay? Now, it would be really convenient if this website made the Adobe Swatch Exchange color palette instead, because the ASE, or Adobe Swatch Exchange, can go into Photoshop, Illustrator, or InDesign. Okay? But this website gives us a Photoshop-only color swatch. Annoying. Okay? But such is life. The website's free. We get what we get. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and open up the world of Photoshop. And I told you weren't allowed to forget Photoshop. Okay? It's still relevant. So we're going to open up Photoshop. And I'm going to go to my Edit menu and go to Presets and then Preset Manager. And this, by the way, is written out. If you went to today's exercise, it will give you a link to it, but it's also under Tutorials, and it is right here under 1.23 Color Swatches. Everything that I'm doing is written out right here, so you can follow it step by step as well. Okay? So let me go back to Photoshop, and I've opened up that Preset Manager. So once again, the Preset Manager is under Edit, Presets, Preset Manager. And I'm not worried about brushes, I'm worried about swatches. So we're going to move to the item 2 under swatches. And I want to make a quick note of what the last swatch color was. It's kind of this brown, and it's in the middle of my swatches. Okay? I can then click on the load button here. And when I click on load, I can go to my downloads, and there's my palette that I just downloaded. And I'll click load. And notice, starting from where that brown color was, I get a whole new set of color swatches that have loaded in to Photoshop. Okay? Those are the ones that I created from the Paladin website. It's these color swatches. Okay? So now that I'm here in the presets, I'm going to click on the first one, and I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to click on the last one. And you see they all get highlighted with little blue rectangles. Okay? So I've selected all 15 of my color swatches that I created. And the logical thing would be to come up here and say Save Set, and you would think that it would save a Swatch Exchange file. Nope, sorry. Okay? Instead of clicking Save Set, we have to go to this little tiny gear, and from here we can say Save Swatches for Exchange. That's what we want. Okay? So this Save Swatches for Exchange will give us this ASE. This ASE file is universal, Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator. That's what we want. That's the ideal format. So let me go ahead and save that onto my flash drive, maybe. If I can find, it's actually my OneDrive. There it is. Nope, that's not it. Really? Come on. There it is. All right, let's go into today's folder, which is 116. And I'm going to call this first swatch example EX6. Okay, and so I'll go ahead and save this right here. Okay, that Swatch Exchange file now will be readable by all the other applications. Okay, so what I want you to do to prove that this works is I'll have you go to today's exercise. Right here. And here are a bunch of Illustrator files that will let you use your color swatch and prove that it works. So I had 15 colors, so I'm going to come down to the color swatch sample file with 15 colors. I'll click on that, and I'll go ahead and open it. And it gives me a sample file that has a bunch of rectangles that are next to each other, and I'm going to load and then apply my swatches to each of these. Okay? So the first thing that I'll do is over on the right side here, I'm going to open up the swatches panel, which is right here. It looks like a bunch of little rectangles together. And currently, I have some default swatches that have loaded, but I want to load up my new set. So I'll click on the flyout menu, which is the triangle with the 4 lines. And I'll go all the way down to Open Swatch Library, and then choose Other Library. Okay, from here, I'll go to today's folder where I just saved my, that's not it, where I just saved my color swatch. There it is. I'll click Open, and now we see a separate little window that has all of my swatches loaded. So at this point, it's just a matter of clicking on each and then filling each one with the colors. Okay? So what this is doing is it's proving that you know how to use the swatches and load the swatches. Okay? So I'll go ahead and continue with the next set. And then we'll move on to the last set. Okay, so now I have those put in. I'll go ahead and go to the File menu, and I'll go to Save for Web, and I can save a preview version of this. It probably needs to be a little bit larger than it currently is. Maybe let's do 600 by 600 or so. There you go, that looks a little bit better. And I can go ahead and save this again into today's folder. Sample. And I'll click Save. Okay, so now I have that saved as an example. I'm going to post that along with the swatch file, right, to the course website. And I would like to take a moment to point out that there are other swatches that are available for you to use, some of which are pretty cool. If you go to Resources and then Swatches, these are swatches that I've actually created here under the featured swatches. These mimic what markers look like you know, if you were using an actual Prismacolor marker set. And so if you downloaded this particular set, it'll have little streaks in it. I'll show you what that one looks like in a second. I should have opened that in a new tab here. There you go. You might be able to see them a little bit. You see those streaks that are left in it? Right? That can be useful when we do diagramming and whatever. I'll have you download those. The other swatches that are available here match up with the colors that are part of the Prismacolor markers. If you have that set and you want to mimic those colors. So anyway, they're there should you be interested in them. You can also view all of the color swatches that people have uploaded in the past, and you can see different key items and search by those. Okay? So let me just go through. I wanted to show you another website, which is thecolored.com. And it's one of those websites that likes to get rid of vowels. So it's COLRD.com, colored. And what this website does is it allows you to pick color palettes based on images, which can be kind of fun. So you can go to Image over here on the right. Create up here on the top. Then pick Image DNA. And you could actually upload your own photo. And it will pull colors based on that particular image, which can be kind of fun if it will load. All right, well, I'm failing miserably at letting this work for you. Let's see if it loads. It loads here. Maybe not. So the point is that you can load a particular image, and then it will pick a color palette based on that particular image. So in this case, it's the picture of the squirrel, and it's giving us black, gray, green, and a light green, and a white as our colors. We could choose to open, and there are a variety of sample images that have been brought in. Notice that one of the options is upload, so you could upload your own. But again, any of these images that you pick, it will give you a color palette based on those particular images. So let's say I liked this color palette, right? I can click on the Save button, and it's going to ask me to download to Illustrator, Photoshop, or GIMP. Okay? In this case, we'll go ahead and pick Illustrator, maybe. Oh. There it is, that AI, mycolor.ai. Okay? And if I go into Illustrator, and I go to the little flyout menu, and I go to Open Swatch Library, Other Library, I can go to my Downloads folder, and I can pick that mycolor.ai, and I open it, and there's my colors. So in this case, I would need just the 5-color version. So I'd go back to the course website, under today's exercise, and I would pick the 5 colors. There's the 5 colors, and so we'd pick the first, and we'd establish that as my color palette. Okay? You can also save this file. Again, this was an AI file. We can save this for swatch exchange. Let me go to right here. I could say save swatch library as ASE if I wanted to. Okay? But again, it's already in Illustrator. That's the file that we need for right now. All right? So this will not take you the whole time to be able to create the color palettes. I just want you to be aware. The other option is in any one of these, you can create swatches. I can just go to New Color Swatch, and I can type in the value in CMYK, or I could switch to RGB and type in a value and create a color, and then use that color again and again and save it as a swatch. Okay? But I think it's helpful to start from the website because it'll help you figure out what colors go together a little bit more easily. All right, are there any questions? I know I was very long-winded today, but thanks for bearing with me. No questions? I'll turn you loose.